Okay, so in this video, this is our last example of finding a specific coordinate that is an angle rotation that intersects with a circle. So we're finding a point on a circle using trig to find that point. We know that the angle measures to 225 degrees, and so ultimately, rather than drawing a circle and a rotation, I'm going to kind of just, I don't want to say cheat, but just make life a little bit more efficient. I know 225 because this is 0, this is 90, this is 180, and this is 270. I know 225 is somewhere here in our third quadrant. And so I know I'm going to draw a triangle to find the information, so I might as well just draw a triangle in that quadrant. And this is the point that I'm trying to find. I want to know what x and y are. I know the radius is 8 root 2. So one of the quick ways to do this, and I've showed you a couple different methods, and this might be my preferred method, is I know this is 225, so I know my reference angle is 45. Quick trick, when we're dealing with some of these special angles, if it ends in 5, and we're dealing with no calculator stuff, guess what? 45 degrees is probably your reference angle. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go ahead and on the inside of this triangle to find the point, one of the quick ways to do this is I know that this guy right here is x root 2. So that means what does x have to equal? It's got to equal 8. So that tells me that that guy is 8. Well, isn't this side x and this side is also x because it's a 45, 45, 90. So this is also 8. These are both negative values. And I know they're negative because of the placement in the coordinate system. So I know that this exact point is negative 8. Negative 8. And all I'm using is the ideas of our properties of 45, 45, 90s and 30, 60, 90s. If you prefer the other method that we used where we know that r times sine of theta is equal to y, and r times cosine of theta is equal to x, you could still do that, and you'd get 8 root 2 times and we would use the reference angle to find it, but that's where you have to be a little careful because there's positive and negative values that we have to worry about. So I would do sine of 45 degrees, and that's going to equal 8 root 2 times root 2 over 2. And then that would simplify. The root 2's would turn into 8 times 2 over 2, and that would equal 8. But the only problem with this is kind of the same problem as before. We have to put it in perspective of where the actual point is located. So we need to know that even though we're getting the number 8 here, we know it's negative because we're putting in that coordinate system. And we'd get the same thing here, and that would be cosine. And because we know 45 degrees is an isosceles triangle, both the cosine and sine values are going to be the same. You just have to worry about those positives and negatives and be careful with those. And that's how we can solve to find an exact value or exact point on a circle. And so depending on which method you prefer, I don't care which one you use, it's important to understand that both this guy right here and right here, these guys, I'm going to make it a star instead of an X, are important concepts to understand because you're going to see these types of equations later on in some future math classes.